We're going to be working on 3.5 today. That's chapter 3, section 5. We're going to write and graph equations of lines. Now, you did this last year when you were in algebra. It just so happened, though, that when you did like y equals mx plus b, you did that for a week. You probably took 2 or 3 days for parallel lines, 2 or 3 days for perpendicular lines, and it took about 2 weeks to get through this. In geometry, this takes about a day, okay, because it's all review. If for some weird reason you're really struggling, like you don't remember any of this from last year, or it didn't go real well for you last year and you need some extra help, make sure you make an appointment and come in, okay, because I want to go over it with you. I'll give you some sample problems and we'll work on them together. So let's take a look, first of all, recalling slope-intercept form. It's y equals mx plus b. My m is the slope. That's right. And my b is the, that's right, y-intercept. All right, let's take a look at the first problem. In this problem, my m is -1/2. Very good. And my b is -5. Now, question for you, which one do I do first? Do I do my slope first or do I do my y-intercept first? Y-intercept always comes first. So I'm going to find my y-axis, which this is my y-axis, and I'm going to go to where it's -5, right here. And if my slope is -1/2, how do I move?
Down 1 to the right twice.
Correct. Down 1 and right 2. Down 1, right 2. And you're going to have at least 3 dots, or 3 points, shall I say, and draw my arrows. So some of you on your homework quiz from Friday, we need to do a little nicer job at darkening our axes in. This on notes is actually really, really good. It's dark, the arrows are on it. Hash marks are easy to see. And then when I do a line, I need to make sure there are 3 points to my line. The line is nice and straight, and I got arrows on my line. Okay? Questions? Okay, let's go to the next one. This one says, what is the equation of the line? So let's take a look first of all at my m. So what we do is it's the first point we come to from left to right. So this point right here, this is the point that I'm looking at. And it's kind of a direction. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. So because I go down, it's going to be negative. So -3. And then I'm going to go to the right 2. So my slope is -3/2. Can I write it as -1.5? How about -1.5? No, we're going to leave it as rise over run, right? Okay. And then let's take a look at my b. B again is my y-intercept. What is my y-intercept? It's 2. Yeah, so it's 0, 2. Gesundheit. And so this is going to end up being a 2. So y equals mx plus b. Y equals -3/2x plus 2. And I'm done. Any questions on this? Okay, kind of remember it? Little bit? Yeah? No? Yeah? Okay. Let's keep going. What if I don't know the y-intercept? So like on the last problem, the y-intercept was depicted on the line. It was easy to read. But you're going to notice on this one, not so much. In fact, it's in between 3 and 4. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my m. And I can do it by reading it. I can take the ordered pair and do my y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Or I could just count it. Again, I take the point that I come to first from left to right, and I'm going to move up 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be a what 4? Positive because I moved up. And then I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my slope is going to be 4/9. Yep, 4/9 because it's rise over run. Now my b, do I know it? I don't know it. So do you remember from last year what you did to find your b? This is a good ACT question, 10th graders. This will be on that pre-ACT that you're taking this week. What would be the next thing that I do? Well, I got the slope, right? I know y equals mx plus b. What's something else that I know? What did they give me? I got ordered pairs, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of the ordered pairs. Doesn't matter which. I'm going to pick -3, 2. So I'm going to come over here. I don't know my b, but I do know that I've got -3, 2. And this is my x, and this is my y. So I'm going to plug it into y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to try to solve for my b. So my y is 2. Slope is 4/9. X is -3. Notice I put it in parentheses. Plus, what's my b? B. That's what I'm trying to find. Remember it now from last year? Yeah. We did a lot of it. So 2 equals, what's 4/3 times -9? Negative what? Negative fraction. Use a fraction. 1 and -1/3. -1 and 1/3. Okay, now what am I going to do? Yes, very good. Add 1 and 1/3. B gives me 3 1/3. You could put 3.3 repeating. However, in my mind, when I look at 1/3, I know the graph a little bit better. Like I know that it's closer to 3. I don't know. I just find it a little bit easier. So that's my b. So y equals 4/9 x plus 3 1/3. And if I look at my graph, if I come over here and look at my graph, do you remember how I said it was between 3 and 4? Okay, right there, right? So this equation makes a lot of sense. Any questions on that? Any questions? Okay, let's keep going. Now, what we're going to do on this one is we're going to find the equation for line AB, and then we're going to find an equation of a line that's parallel to it and a line that's perpendicular to it. Again, this is huge ACT questions here. This is huge, right? So first of all, the equation of AB. What is my M? That's what I got to figure out. So I'm going to come here and I go down how many? Yes, 4. So I'm going to write -4. And then I'm going to go right how many? 6. So my slope then is going to be -4 over 6, or what? -2/3. Absolutely. Okay, yes, I want you to put -4 and -6. Yes, I want you to do that. Okay, and then I want you to reduce it. Why? Because if you do reduce it wrong, it's okay. At least I know that you understand what slope is. Right? So I found my slope. Do I know my b? What's my b? It's 4. Yep. So this was 0, 4. So my b is 4. So y equals -2/3 x plus 4. That's the equation to the line. Questions on that? Okay, now let's talk about parallel. So what they want on this thing is they want you to come up with an equation that goes through P and is parallel to that other line. That's what they're looking for, okay? So what do I know about lines that are parallel? Say what? Okay, two lines that never cross. What do I know about their slopes? They're the same, right? So the slope of the line from up above was negative 2/3, right? So what I'm going to do is, if I'm looking at the new line and I'm doing parallel, what's the slope of the new line? It's going to be the same, right? And you go, well, Mrs. Medvick, why are you writing that down? The reason why I am is it changes where perpendicular is concerned. So I'm taking a look, can you take the slope from the old equation and can you look at the new equation? Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the point up here, P, and what's the ordered pair of the point P here? It's 1, -2, right? So I'm going to take that ordered pair, and I'm going to go y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to find my b. So my y is -2, my m is -2/3, my x is, and my b is b. Yep. So I'm going to do my algebra magic. B ends up giving me what? What is B? Thank you. -1 and 1/3. Yep. So the new equation then is y equals -2/3 x minus 1 and 1/3. Notice how my b is a mixed number. You could put -1.3 repeating for b if you really want to, but the slope has to be -2/3. Do not change that into a decimal. Questions on that? You guys remember doing that last year? Kind of, sort of, maybe? All right, let's do perpendicular. Okay, the key on this one is they want you to do perpendicular, which is, which is this. This is what this means. So the slope of the line from up above, AB, we said was -2/3, and I want to do perpendicular. So what's the slope of that new line? Opposite reciprocal, which is going to be 3/2. Should I make it 1 and 1/2? Nope. Leave it as 3/2. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my P again. Now again, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for a line that goes through like this and forms that right angle right there. I'm coming up with that equation is what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to take 1, -2. Here's my x, here's my y. Y equals mx plus b. Y is -2, m is 3/2, x is 1 plus b. -2 equals, and if you want to, you can make that 1 1/2. B ends up giving me -3 1/2. So y equals 3/2x minus 3 1/2. And again, you can do -3.5 if you want to for the y-intercept. Y-intercepts can be decimals. Questions on this? How many of you kind of remember this from last year? Quite a few of you? Okay, good. All right, let's move on. Now, standard form is something we did last year, and it was in the form ax plus by equals c. I know if you had me, I made those letters capitalized a lot of the time. And A, B, and C are integers, meaning they're not going to be fractions or decimals. And A is a positive number. So think of it as a line leader. If you remember, we said that you want to have a positive line leader that'll actually take the kids where they're supposed to go, right? Okay, so it's not always easy to graph from standard form. So if you're given an equation in standard form, you always want to solve for y. So then it's in slope-intercept form. You want to get y by itself. So you're going to kind of peel it like an onion. Okay, so here's the problem. It asks you to graph it, and we want to get the y by itself. So what's the first step? Subtract 4x, right. So I've got 10y equals, what comes first, the 20 or the minus 4x? Minus 4x, that's right. Am I done? No, my y is still not by itself. It's still attached to the 10. So how do I get rid of the 10? I'm going to divide by 10. So y equals negative 4/10 x plus 20 over 10. Do you remember the 10 is under both of those numbers, underneath the 4, negative 4 and the 20. And then to reduce it, y equals negative 2/5 x plus 2. Now, some students ask me, Mrs. Medvick, is it okay if I just go from the original one and go down to the last one? I'm fine with that. I really am. Just make sure what you do is correct. What happens is a lot of times when students skip a lot of steps, you make silly mistakes, and so it can be a problem. All right, so we're going to graph it. My m is negative 2/5. My b is 2. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to grab my 2. How do I move this? Negative 2/5. How do I move it? Yes. That's right. Down 2, right 5. Down 2, right 5. Nope. Need one more. Now, make sure you put arrows on them. Now, one thing to be careful for, and I've had these kids do this before, if you're graphing this and you run out of space on your graph, you can move your x and y axes. So rather than the black lines being there, if you're taking a test or whatever, even if you're graphing it, change your y-axis to over here and maybe change your x-axis to here. You can change your axes. So do that if you run out of room. Another thing you can do is you can go by 2s or go by 5s. So rather than these going by 1, this could be like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. You can number them. That's another thing you can do. What I don't want to have happen, and this is what I have a lot of students do, they'll add lines to their graph. And then don't do that. Change your graph by changing the numbers on it or change your axes, but never add these to your graph. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be changing something else. Okay. Questions? Okay. If you want graph paper, I'll come around with it. I'll show you where it's at. When you do your assignment, you can put the graph with the assignment. You don't need graph paper. If you want to draw it out yourself, definitely do it. Just make sure that when you're graphing, you've got your x-axis like this, and your y-axis like this. Okay, you want to make sure you put some hash marks. And when you draw your graph, make sure that it's nice and straight. It's got arrows on it. Okay, because I have a lot of students, you're not doing that, and you're getting a little sloppy with it. So it's a little bit of a concern. Okay. This one, x equals 5 and y equals negative 7. This is actually easier than anything, but students freak out about it. X equals 5. What does that graph look like? Yeah, it's vertical, isn't it? So what I told my kids last year is find out where x is 5, right here. And it doesn't go with the axis, meaning it doesn't go on top of it. It goes the opposite direction. So it's more like this. X equals 5. What's the slope of this line? Is it 0? It's not 0. It's a none, or we call it undefined. Yep, and this is a vertical line. These are all the things you're going to see on that ACT. Okay? Then, y equals -7, so I'm going to come down where y is -7. That's going to be a horizontal line. What's the slope of a horizontal line? 0. Of course, horizontal. Questions? You will have this on your test. Horizontal, vertical lines, what are their slopes, those types of things. Okay. All right, that's all I got for you. If you got questions, let me know.